The Matthew Dark Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, praise God and welcome in. So good to be with you. Well, in November of 2024, the American people, in historic fashion, sent Donald Trump back to the White House. And there was many things on our agenda. We got to have this, this, and this. This is the American people speaking and a mandate given. Of course, we said we've got to have a closed border and we need mass deportations. We said we need justice for the Epstein victims, full release, full prosecution. We needed work on inflation, bring the cost of living down, make America affordable again. And the other really major important one that we don't ever want to lose sight of was this Make America Healthy Again. And Trump put all the best players in, RFK, of course, leading that charge of we got to get the food dyes out of the food. We got to get pesticides out of our farmland. We've got to get a diet that is more consistent, not with diabetics, but a thriving longevity. How are we going to really make sure our kids are physically fit as they get into adulthood? We have obesity going on like crazy with children. And so we send them to the White House and we say, get this done. And we have a wonderful guest to kind of help us see where we're at with all this and the importance of making America healthy again. Dr. Mark Sherwood. Now, of course, it's so good. Dear friend of the show, so good to be with you again. I guess let's just start kind of with that Make America Healthy Again movement. How important it was to make progress on vaccines and medicines, the food, the air, the pesticides. How do you think we're doing with this? Is this moving in the right direction so far with the plan, implementation? A lot of headwind to make these kind of changes. Big ag, big pharma are saying, don't you touch our nest egg. But I don't know, just kind of give us your feel of where we're at with it and why it's so critical to keep seeing this forward.
Well, I think it's critical, as you started out, Matthew, about the idea of we had to do this because a healthy America makes better decisions economically and costs less. The healthcare industry as a whole, about 90% of the cost that we spend in the industry is spent on avoidable, preventable chronic diseases. So you think about our debt, our governmental debt, and why that is and how that is, it goes right back to an unhealthy America. Even financially speaking, with the cost benefit analysis, it costs more to be sick than it does to be healthy. And so we had to do something because the state of America's health at present is the most unhealthy state it's ever been in the history of mankind's existence. And I don't think people are really getting that.
Right.
The United States government, as we know, we've talked before, was the initiator of the unhealthiness of America. You had things back in the early 80s, two things happened at the same time, and people lose sight of that. You and I have been around the planet a few months, so we know what we're talking about. But we had the initiation of the food pyramid, which glorified the consumption of things that make you sick. At that time in history, we had one state of our 50, albeit measured by the BMI, one state with an obesity rate of over 10%. It took 11 years post initiation of the food pyramid to get every state but one above 10%. And now we have many states 60% above that and going faster. It's predicted by 2050 at that rate that we would have 100% of the population being overweight or obese. Shocking. But that was synonymous with the food pyramid and that trend. We also saw autoimmune conditions elevate. We also saw autism go through the roof. And of course, we know autism now is about probably 1 in 7 people at this point in time. It's predicted to be 1 in 2 by 2050.
Unbelievable.
And at the same time, we had the Vaccine Liability Act that was a situation where the liability of the vaccine companies was taken away from them and the government owned it. So at that point in time, back in the early 80s, that was the crux. You had, kids that were getting half dozen vaccines in the first 2 years of life, and that went up to 25 within 1 year. And so now you're looking at over 60. And so there's a lot of things that happened at once that initiated all that. And I know there's people out there that say, well, this caused that, that caused this. All of it caused that. It's a cumulative thing because it all created uh, intracellular or subcellular dysfunction and intracellular subcellular inflammation. So that's where we came from. Um, and of course, now we're at a place where we had to make changes. If we don't, we're just going to die as a nation. So I do think we're seeing some positive discussions, positive trends. But to wrap up that lengthy intro answer, pharma and big government, make no mistake, Republicans, Democrats, they all take money from big pharma. They don't have to, they choose to. And I'm talking both sides of the aisle, including the current administration. That's fact.
Yes.
They don't have to, they choose to. They're trying to keep everybody happy. But you know as well as I do, you can't keep everybody happy.
That's right.
By getting everybody healthy. So
super smart, well said. What I think the highlight of all that, it's not just the vaccines is why we have out of control. It's not just the food diet. It's the accumulation of these things that hurt us. But the theme is it all came under the watch and or blessing of our federal government that allowed this to. I mean, the food pyramid is like people should step back there and say, holy cow, this was intentional to hurt me, right? I mean, to think that was somehow a nutritional benefit, much like the American Diabetes Association. If you go and look at their, it's a diabetic inducing diet for the diabetic. I mean, so we have to step back and say, hold on a second. I don't know that we'd have these people running a Burger King, and yet they're making these critical decisions that are affecting us today. The autism numbers are out of control. The vaccine volume is out of control. I don't think it gets enough talk, but recently there's some fight and some pushback. That's why we're so prayerful for Thomas Massie. We have to get all behind him. He is a voice. He is a leader. He is seeing the things that we don't usually get to see as the American public. But very recently, President Trump signed executive order for the immunity of those producing using glyphosate. And you look at what that product is, we know it is a carcinogenic. We know it has cancer causing. We know it has a ripple effect through our immune system, all these things are affecting us. And then our poor farmers are handling this stuff and they're not really being presented with the proper risk on this. When we see that now, and this is why we love President Trump, and part of our commitment is to when he's off track, we got to bring that voice, that passion that was so alive and well in 2024 and say, this is our last chance, America. If we don't get President Trump in the White House, we don't have to worry about what comes down our, because it's going straight down a cliff. But you just look at something like that glyphosate immunity executive order and how contradictory that is to an RFK-led. I mean, he is a pioneer in this stuff is getting in our food, getting in our water. It's being consumed. It's having impact on our bodies. And why wouldn't it? It's poison designed to kill things, but somehow we just flush that out, no problem, pick up and keep going. Do you think that the Make America Healthy movement is still at the center or growing in Donald Trump's heart? It seems like we're off track. And it is our job to really say, oh, this was the most important thing. If we don't have healthy children, we don't have a civilization. So who cares about everything else? Do you feel like it's still of an importance to the administration that we've got so many things going on outside of America? How do we get this one really back to the heart and center? We've got to clean up these foods in America.
Well, actions speak louder than words, don't they? And I think you just said a lot of descriptors of the actions that have been taken. I do not believe personally that the Make America Healthy movement again is at the center of discussion. My opinion, and people can, I did say this, not necessarily, perhaps I might have on this show, but I said it a lot. My biggest concern when Robert F. Kennedy was running for president, he was pushing that MAHA movement. All the people that were aligned with him were both Democrats, Republicans, Independents. There were people all over the roadmap that were supporting that because we all knew that health is one of the things that's our greatest wealth of this nation. Yes. That's it. You know, God gave us this physical body, and we as people are the only thing that's been created in God's image. Right. You know, here we are trying to protect the cows, the trees, the environment, you know, the climate. But mankind is the most important creation in the eyes of God. And he created health.
That's right.
And he created the earth for us to thrive. And so when RFK was running for president, and there was discussion about how he was going to disrupt the electoral
Yeah.
college, and may shift the
Yes.
election in one way or the other. And I made the comment to my wife, and we've discussed it further on many, many shows. I knew at that point, because I've been in the political realm, both the Democrats and the Republicans at that stage of the game were going to reach out to him and try to make a deal.
Yeah.
They both were going to. And you can't blame them because that's the way politics are done.
Yep.
And when he endorsed President Trump, which I'm glad he did, I'm with that.
Yes.
I believe there was a commitment that you do this, we do this, and all those votes came over here. And good. That may or may not shifted the election. I don't know, but it certainly got it where we wanted to.
Mhm.
But I don't think it's at the center of attention anymore
Okay.
because of the very thing you said. Glyphosate, yes, known carcinogen, but it also contains in that Roundup product atrazine, which is a known estrogenic compound. And what are we seeing go down today? We're seeing testosterone go down in males. We're seeing males have more female characteristics. We're seeing little girls reach puberty faster. We're seeing this confusion of gender identity, which is not just a spiritual issue, Matthew. It's also a physical one because when we consume foods that contain estrogenic compounds, which Roundup does, along with carcinogenic, we excrete that stuff into the waste products. So with us taking birth control,
Yep.
like candy, statin drugs, like candy, and consuming estrogenic compounds and being bathed in estrogenic chemicals in our world, we have extracurricular disaster. So I was disturbed
Mm.
in the heart when I learned of that signed executive order. And I only went back to the influence of big pharma, which is because of big money. And that would have been easy to say, no, thank you. And that was and still is very concerning to me at this point.
I mean, it's so much in there. Do you think that was an intentional act to lower because we know a government would rather have a mild-mannered man to control than a beast that could take care of himself, right? So we know these feminine males that are coming in, this lower testosterone. Do you think that was with intent? This is a way to weaken our population, or was that just a kind of a stumbled upon benefit for the government, and it kind of has resulted in an easier population to manage? I mean, I think that's a big question: intentional or just a byproduct, and now they're the beneficiary of a sickened communities.
I think it's both. And I'll give you a little bit of spiritual context in that. We know the ruler of this world is not God.
Yeah, right.
We know for a temporary time being, Satan's influence rests with the ability, as we saw in Jesus' temptation. He has kingdoms that he can give away, those that worship him. And we know that some of his greatest enticements, meaning Satan, evil spirits, is going to be wealth, fame, money, and power. Right. So when you get that, it becomes addicting. You don't want to give it up.
Right.
And so with the intentionality, it's based upon what's influencing one person. And our job is not to judge others. Our job is to know them by their fruit, I suppose. Right. And so with that said, I do think it's both intentional and also an effect, because when you weaken males as a society,
Yeah.
you weaken the common idea of the head of the home and the head of the family and the male influence. You weaken that. And secondarily, if you take away the seed, you cannot reproduce.
Yeah. Yep.
So you got two things going on there. And sadly, I think it's an influential thing that's embedded in our culture right now. And we're going to have a individual conversation with self, with God involved, staring us back in the mirror and saying, I'm not going to be a part of that anymore.
You just hit it. This, at the end of the day, we can send RFK to the White House, send him to the administration, and do all this stuff. It's an inside job. The human heart has to change.
Yeah.
Jesus tells us, deny yourself and follow me. And we're not denying ourselves with the excess carbohydrate, the processed food, the easy grab and go. We're not making those decisions. We're dependent on lifelong drugs. Why? Because we didn't deny ourselves. I mean, it is so easy in this world now instant fix. It doesn't matter on your phone, fast food, Uber Eats, just come to me. They have made it. We're all kings, right? And it's poison that's being delivered, sadly enough. And so it is a one-on-one job. It's a spiritual job. Can you submit yourself to the Lord Jesus Christ and say, examine me? Okay, where am I dishonoring you with my choices, medicine, food, and all these things? And then also, am I following up? Am I accountable to the things when I elect these people? Am I holding them to account? Because I think what happened in November 2024, the world hangs on a cliffhanger here for Donald Trump's got a win or it's over. We took our foot off the brake and we made some assumptions that we got the right team in place. We've hired the right CEO. We've put his team, and we can kind of go back to vacation, back to the golf course, back to our lives. And I think it's been detrimental to the progress, because I want to bring us up to speed with where we're at, where we're not in America. Okay. We have a very serious situation brewing in Iran. And the reason it is because we've already felt some inflation. It gets deeper. It's still coming upon us. Okay. And it only gets worse the longer this supply chain, everything's connected, it gets worse. Okay. So we know that's happening. We know that we did not get the deportations that we needed. I mean, we closed the border to 94% closed. The wall is being built. Of course, we wish it was up tomorrow, but we do have to check that box. Border closed. We no longer have the caravans, but we didn't get the deportations. So we're still dealing with an overpopulated country of the wrong mix of folks. And I'm sure there's been some absolutely amazing immigrants, illegal immigrants come through, meaning probably ones that you'd have maybe do services for you or be involved with. I guarantee you the problem is America was suffering, burning, flooding, and we invited more people to participate in that flood. So we have to go back to the very, very basics. And I think the one that's most concerning to me, this is where I saw a change in we never saw this in Donald Trump, but his intentional and absolutely obstructive handling of the Epstein files has not shooken America, meaning there's still half of his base says, no, I protect your friends and do all this. It's concerned me that the American heart I thought that was going to be a great unifier of this country. I don't know. We're going to disagree on a lot. One thing we are really clear on is how we behave with our children, how we raise our children. And we have such, I guess, cold hearts that are just not concerned with their fellow man. This didn't shake up the nation. And it's not like we need justice. We need answers. We need accountability. We cannot have this in our country. I guess just from your perspective on the handling of the Epstein files, and I just continue, why are we making this so difficult? And then I guess the breakthrough behind it, that if we can just sort of say, we're going to come clean with this thing. We hear you, American people. Here it is, and let the chips fall where they may. What's the resistance to that, you think?
Well, I think the overriding resistance is we've allowed the government to be over the people. Instead of a nation that is a nation where the government is governed by the people, we've become a nation where the government governs the people. Government's got too big. People have gotten too small. I'll put on for a moment, if you will, my former 2+ decade police officer hat.
Please.
I've done investigations such as this, and all types of investigations, including homicides, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, prostitution, and the like. This is not that hard. If this were someone else involved, we've seen this, and I want people to just think through this. If this was someone's groups of people that were only anti-Trump people, I would bet the farm that it would be a public information situation very quickly, without question. But because it involves people that have a name, remember money, fame, power.
Yeah.
You have had a utterly incompetent, inept handling of this investigation. And I use those words with great caution, but intentionality, because when you put just the head of an organization, one Jeffrey Epstein, in jail, and then his, associate / mistress Ghislaine Maxwell in jail, and no one else, and other countries now are starting to charge some of their ambassadors that were connected with Jeffrey Epstein, and then the pushback, Matthew, to say, oh, it's going to hurt the victims. Nonsense. It's hurting the victims right now because their voice is being silenced.
Yeah.
You never in an investigation, you do interview the suspects. You do protect the victims. There's been no interviews of the suspects.
That's right.
There's been no one that's taken over the investigation and said, you know what? I'm not influenced by government, but I have governmental power to subpoena whoever the heck I want to do. And sometimes that's about releasing files, all of them. Sometimes it's not. It's not about releasing it to embarrass people. It's about releasing information necessary to inform the public of what's going on for accountability purposes, because there are victims out here that have been victimized, that have been completely abused, probably murdered for the last several years, and it's not okay.
Right.
So that to me is one of the most disgusting cover-ups that I think I know about in my lifetime, and it has it has formed an opinion that I have based upon what I see, that I don't trust their ability
Right.
to handle investigations squarely anymore, because things have been such politicized. I'm going to
Yeah.
prosecute my enemies and call some judging other people, calling them names, and then being holier than thou, and allowing this stuff to go on. This is a black mark and a stain upon our democratic republic, is that we call it.
Yeah.
It's a stain, and it doesn't look good, and it's not going to get good. Look good for a number of years. And my biggest concern with this is that at some point in time, if you have a different lean of administration,
Yeah.
that all hell's going to break loose.
I think you're right. I think one thing that was beautifully said, and thank you for that. It's not that hard. We're making it hard intentionally. When you speaking to the victims, to the idea that pursuing this justice would hurt them. I mean, could you imagine being a father right now at home who knows he has an Epstein victim, and you're hearing that response from the presidents that this is a Democrat hoax? Have you heard what my daughter went through? And you're going to tell it, we're approaching an unforgivable level of mishandling of this thing. And really, though, we just dialing in now. Okay, you and I understand whether this was, I don't care what political party these people, these perpetrators are at all. Trump himself, I don't care. A nation that is built on the protection of that kind of filth cannot stand. And no offense, I'll never fight for that. I'll never pay taxes for that. I'll never follow laws from a government that says, do this while we protect this. This is the lowest form of criminal behavior. And I heard this really well said once. There is no justifiable crime against a child, not one. You could say, I found the guy sleeping with my wife and I killed him. A moment of passion. Still got to go to jail. I understand why you did that. I understand why you robbed this store because you hadn't eaten in a week. And I get all that. Crime against a child, you can't find me one reason, one justifiable reason how you ever came to do the crime against a child. So we have to be a nation that starts with our children, and are they being set up for the best? And so we work our way up. I think where we're at with Trump on this Epstein, Iran, because it's kind of they're together in the sense of it's really convenient to have this major distraction while we're dealing with the greatest cover up of all time. I mean, 9/11, the 2020, COVID, Vietnam stuff, and all the great conspiracies. There's nothing like this, but it's happening in lifetime before our very eyes. And we've got certain members of Trump's base saying, I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. Trump would never do that. And to me, we're just about, as soon as that heart changes and realizes that, hold on a second, this is baby boomers, 65 to 80 right now that voted for Trump. About half of them, we're having a trouble getting them to detach their love for Trump and the reality of what's going on, and that this is bigger than Donald Trump. Whether he was a customer or just knew of it, don't care, got to have them all. And then remember this, Doctor, he comes down the escalator in 2015, and he gave us two great themes and messages. A, we're going to build a wall, and Mexico's going to pay for that wall. Now, I don't really care about Mexico, but build the wall. Good job. The other thing, drain the swamp. Drain the swamp. You want to know, the quickest way to drain your swamp? That's in the Epstein files. They live in the Epstein files. So there is something that is now preventing Donald Trump from making his own decisions, either his own guilt to cover, or the people that know the consequences are saying, don't you dare release the files. Do you understand? It's going to cost you everything. I do have sympathy for his position, unless he's a perpetrator, because if he's really just trying to protect this system, and he knows he's danged if he do, danged if he don't, I get it, but you signed up for the hardest job in America. This is where you have to really perform, right? So we have to keep pressing that. Our voice has to keep pressing that. And so we move into this midterm. That's why it's so concerning. We have primaries coming up here in the summer, and then the midterms in November. I mean, straight up, if this was held tomorrow, it's a clean Democrat sweep, right? They just smoke and they now take control. Is that pretty fair with the current trajectory of the administration?
I think so. We're in a place now where two things are happening. You have the Democrats, hardcore Democrat would be saying, see, I told you, he's covering it up, and the Iran concept is just conveniently initiated at this time to provide distraction. And then you have the criminal charge of James Comey, 8647, which, that is a little
Ridiculous.
bit silly.
Yeah.
It's a tit for tat. I'm going to hurt you because you don't like me. You've got the criticism of Thomas Massey, which makes no sense because I've listened to him talk. He seems very reasonable and common sense. You got the criticism of people that are saying release the Epstein files.
Right.
You got statements that say, if you don't endorse me, basically, I'm gonna primary you and fund them too.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think it's a clean sweep for the Democratic movement, but I think there's enough Republicans out there or independents or just free thinkers that are saying, you know what, that's pretty bad. Like you said, that's pretty disgusting. And, even Jesus said in his word, whoever causes one of these little ones to sin or hurts them, translated, they need to be thrown into a big lake with a millstone tied around their neck.
That's right. That's right.
And so we need to protect our next generation at all costs, or we have no future. And I think that's my biggest concern with this is we have an environment now in our America that's not healthy physically, emotionally, or spiritually. And that is something that just disturbs me and grieves me deeply.
You just hit it. And I know you're a hope dealer. And so what we have to do out of this, because it looks pretty grim and bare and ugly, and I might want to jump ship. I mean, this is looking pretty bad. So hope remains. Of course, we find our hope in Jesus Christ. And with hope, I think the next day is always bearable. Without hope, it's like maybe I've had enough. That's the spirit of America. We're not providing enough hope, right? Because, we can see it's not working and it's getting tighter. The inflation is out of control. This is not okay. You are suffocating the nation unnecessarily, of course, through fraud, waste, and abuse, unnecessary wars, AI data centers going up, destroying our land, consuming the energy and the infrastructure of these towns. I guess speak on that. I don't think we give the ugly side of AI enough. They just tell us how great it's going to be. It would never hurt a person, and it's going to make life so much easier. What are your thoughts on AI? It seems like it's coming on super quick, without asking any questions, having permanent consequences, and then does it uplift the common man? Does the common man making 50,000 a year now with AI in his life, he's making 100? I still don't see how this is all really playing out. I guess your thoughts on AI and even kind of spiritually, because I really feel like this is totally against God. This will just download these thoughts into you and spit out. It certainly doesn't involve investigative thinking, critical thinking. Hey, what is this? And it tells me this. I guess your thoughts on AI, just from a Christian heart, can it be used well? Can it be used for harm?
Like any technology we have that mankind comes up with has a dual-edged sword attached. That you can find the good use with proper wisdom, how to apply information correctly for good. AI could perhaps be a tool used to present the gospel. So there's some good things about that. I use AI quite a bit to search available databases. Of course, you have to vet that and verify that. But there is the dark side. And this is coming upon us whether we like it or not, much like back in the early 2000s, the internet. Remember, there was people, the internet's going to be bad, and cell phones. I mean, you and I grew up before there were cell phones. And so It is coming upon us, and it's up to people, individual people, as opposed to trusting the government to tell us what to do. We need to have the ability to critically think. And the biggest concern I have with AI is that we don't converse anymore as people to share ideas.
Right.
AI has no soul. It has no wisdom. It has a consciousness, I suppose, of some sort, because it's able
Yeah.
in the artificial way to scrape data points and bring that data forward. But remember, it's trained by mankind,
Yeah.
and what data points it's allowed access to are what is allowed out there into the ecosystem via the internet. So um, I'm concerned about the communication and critical thinking skill deterioration of our society, specifically in our children. I know Melania Trump just came out and talked about having an AI tutor and all that stuff. Well, what does that do to socialization? What does that do to the ability to disagree with another fellow person
Yeah.
and have a conversation about them? What does that do to the heart of America, Matthew? Because we are a nation that's built upon disagreement. You really are. We're a
Yeah.
nation that's built upon disagreement, but really understanding we're Americans, and because of disagreements, we're able to come up with better solutions. What is that going to do to that? I don't know, and I get concerned about that because people are not communicating as much anymore. They're not looking at a
Yeah.
person in the eye, whether it be online or not. They're going to start having relationships with artificial
That's right.
intelligence creatures, and
Mhm.
that's fruitful for disaster.
Yeah, we're going to have lonely men falling in love with this thing because it knows
Yeah,
what's going to get him just perfect and comfortable.
yeah,
And that is the wicked side. You know, it's like cars and guns. They can be used for good or very
100%.
horrible. Um, I guess it feels like we do have to use caution. And I do think that the AI ability, the quick access information to the capable person, meaning the person that's already got a foundation of learning and now is just getting better and quicker with
Yeah,
this instant. I think it's wonderful for that. If that is in fact how you learn to live, I just ask my machine every question in my life. That's where we have a very easy to manipulate, easy to control population, which I guess is the goal. Our guest is Dr. Mark Sherwood. Is so good. Now, this is one thing I always like to hear from the guest is what is on your hope, excitement coming up? What is it that's like all this stuff is happening? I'm so excited to have an opportunity to do X, Y, Z. What's coming up on your horizon that really is this is good stuff and this is worth pouring into?
I think there's a couple things just from an overall global standpoint. Um, all the stuff we talked about, I don't want people listening now to think it's uh, do or die time or
Yeah.
death, whatever. It's to me, it's a wonderful time
Yeah.
because I look at it like, man, what a time to be something different. What a time to represent something of values and ethics and
Yeah.
behaviors and morals and walking around a business card
Yeah.
that looks different than the world. In other words, what am I talking about? Kingdom stuff, you know?
Mhm.
What a great time to see that difference just by your actions. How can you love somebody who's criticizing you? How
Mhm.
can you pray for people that oppose you? How can you communicate with someone and forgive someone that wronged you? These are opportunities right now that I think are just
Mhm.
incredible, So I'm excited by that. And I try to focus on in the middle of a storm, who is walking through the storm with me and who is empowering me to reflect himself in the middle of the storm. A lot of darkness, but let us remember that there's one flicker of light that drowns out 100% of all of darkness. And so we represent that,
Yeah.
Matthew, and I think that's exciting to me. From a personal standpoint, my wife and I have kind of embraced it. I mean, we decided that I'm not going to be moved by that. I'm concerned by it, but I'm not going to be consumed by that. I want to be consumed by love for my fellow man, and I'm going to put all effort into giving hope. And so we've got another book coming out. We've written a couple
Great.
last year. We've um, made another couple of movies in the last couple of years since we talked last, and
Good.
our passion and global reach from whom we get to talk to. We've really uh, honed into the idea of the concept of longevity, but not to live longer, but the concept of increasing health span. In other words,
Yeah.
increasing the time at which we live and decreasing the sick span in which the time we die. And
Mm.
so we've been really leaning into that hard and doubling down on that hard because I want to give people the passion to stay alive and critically think to make better decisions, especially in a time such as this.
I think it's beautifully said. The book of James says, consider all your troubles joy. This is the Lord is perfecting you. He is maturing you. And that's really the truth, because this light that must stand out, this is a dark, broken world. I think Stevie Wonder can see that, Helen Keller, all of our famous blind people can see this is a broken world and as wretched as we've ever been, but there is hope. And really it does. It's going to be inside that one-on-one heart. Do you have it in as a Christian to go up to a stranger and say, have you heard of the Lord Jesus Christ? And if not, would you love to meet him? Can I tell you a story about what he's done for me? It really has to become an evangelistic community and society. Have you gone over to your neighbor? Yeah, this came to me when we were sending our church on missions trips and we're going to India and South Africa. How many lost people do you have to fly over in the United States to get there? And so it starts right there in your own family, and now your neighborhood, and now your business, and now all these things. And I don't know about the guy's personal views. I know he loves the Lord Jesus Christ, and there's something different about walking with the Lord in the light than in the darkness. And that's kind of where I've been so excited. Forget all this. We know we're not going to vote out of our way out of these challenges in America. Right. We're living that right now. But you know, one that doesn't change, the Lord Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. You can put all your deposits in on him, and we can do things differently tomorrow. Because as soon as that light bulb goes off, all these decisions we're making with our food and the over-vaccination of our children and who we're voting for and the kind of misconduct that we're willing to tolerate from our own government, the abuse of children, the abuse of our money, and then the abuse of our military resources that they're just scattering over. And it's like, have you noticed what we're living in here? We can make it a good life here, but it has to involve the Lord Jesus Christ. So encourage every man, if you're not taking your family to church right now, today's the day. Today's the day you lead your family like you've never led them before, because you're going, and then you got to get Christian brothers like you described that come around you, encourage you. You know, if I was a retired guy, I would have coffee and talk Bible with a guy 7 days a week. It's my favorite thing to do to see how God's working in your life. And so you have no idea what you're missing outside of that Christian fellowship. It's something that only the Lord can bring together, and then just inspire and encourage. One of the greatest things, in addition to hope, what can we do? We can encourage our fellow man. Okay. And so this is the excitement that keeps us going for dark times, but there's better times ahead. We know that. Doctor, tell us all the places we can look at the books, follow your work, support what you're doing. What's the best places?
Super easy. People can probably go to my own personal website. That's probably good enough. It's drmarksherwood.com, DRMARKSHERWOOD. That's mine. And then our global website is simply Sherwood.tv. So those are two things. And, you know, man, I agree with you, Matthew. I think that's just brilliantly stated. It's all about hope, and our actions speak louder than words. You will know them by their fruit. Man, we should be encouraged right now. And people listening right now, just encourage them to just, hey, let go of yesterday, man, and just live today, man. Inputs today, input good stuff and output good actions.
Isn't that the beauty about the Christian walk, though? Son of a gun, I didn't think about that person's heart before I said it. Lord, I'm so sorry. Change my, and he'll give you a fresh start right then, there in the spot.
Yes.
Don't live in that shame. It's over now. He can purify that. Just turn your ways, and we're growing and we're growing. Doctor, I want to thank you so much. God bless you. We'll get all the links and support in there. It's so good to be connected with you again. And folks, do this until next time. Serve the Lord Jesus Christ. Tell a friend about him. Stay good. God bless everybody.
The Matthew Dark Show, your one-stop show for truth, courage, fellowship, and faith. Available everywhere you get your podcasts.